I do really believe 100% from every part of me that everyone has the capacity to be able to do the things that they want and not to be held back by the mental baggage that's in our head that we want to push through.
Welcome to the Do the Thing podcast. In each episode, we get down and personal with people who go after the things they want to make all their wildest dreams come true. Join us as we unveil and dissect a formula for what it takes to do the thing. Here is your host, Stacy Lauren.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Do the Thing podcast. This is your host, Stacy Lauren. You may remember today's guest from a previous episode where she revealed how she escaped from Ukraine and somehow got the courage and determination to help 130 women escape Ukraine, flee to safety, and rebuild their lives. Her story inspired so many of you. I wanted to bring her back on to talk about her life before the war. If you haven't seen that episode yet, go check it out. It's episode 10. This guest is the founder of Vladychynska Consulting. She also has several other accolades and titles to her name, including Certified Customer Experience Consultant, MBA Professor for Customer Experience Management, and Professional Speaker at National Speakers Association in New York City. Helping businesses create lasting relationships with both their customers and employees is her true passion. Today, she teaches and consults clients worldwide. But this guest didn't always realize that customer service would become one of her namesakes. She fell into the role almost by accident when she realized the place she worked didn't have a tangible system for handling customer complaints. You'll get to hear this remarkable story today. Using the techniques she developed over time, her clients enjoy increased annual profits, often by 20 to 30%. She's worked with some of the biggest companies in the corporate world, like McDonald's, OTP Bank, and Max Mara, to name a few. And if that weren't impressive enough, this guest has also received plenty of raving reviews from the press. You may have read her story or followed her successes in Forbes, The Authority magazine, or even Ticker News. She has an uncanny way of identifying problems, brainstorming ideas, and implementing solutions, regardless of the situation. Today, she gives us a glimpse into how her passion for serving customers began and unveiling more of her formula for how she does the thing. It is my great pleasure to welcome back Anastasia Vladychynska.
Yes. Hi, Stacy. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to take the time again. I was wondering, could you, because I know when you were on last time, we talked in detail about everything that happened really after the war happened. And so I really wanted to go into your business and how you got to where you are in your business. And I would love to have you share your story on that.
Thank you. It's thank you, by the way, because it's really taking me to the normality of life when I think about the business. And yeah, where would you like me to start, though? Is it something from my background and how I turned from corporate to doing this, or right when I started it? What would be the most valuable for your people, though?
Yeah, I love that question. And actually, you guys, this is like, this is the exact example of what I love about Anastasia is she's really able to dissect and ask questions to make sure you're getting the value you want. So yeah, so anyway, you just proved what I've been saying about you by that question. But yeah, so, the podcast is really about people doing the thing. And so
yes.
I really you could even start from when you were little, like we.
Well, that's going to take like 2 days.
That's what I was going to say. We don't have like a million hours, but the things that you've recognized that have helped you get into this business and start it. And then, yes. As far as the transition, feel free to talk about that. And then we can kind of dissect and dive into different things.
Yeah, awesome. So my background is travel, tourism, and aviation. And when I was 21, I guess, I was accepted as an assistant to a CEO of an international airline. And all the usual assistant stuff. I had to be in control of his mail, of his everything, right? And by the way, when I say mail, I mean envelopes and letters. Okay, I don't mean inbox in of digital. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm not that young. Some people look at my picture now. They're like, are you 16? No, I'm not. It's just a nice hairdo. So, yeah, ladies, you can, your hairdo can take you back. So I was opening those envelopes, and my task was to read them through and just give the envelopes, the letters. Give the letters back to him. And some of the letters that I was opening were from angry passengers, especially foreigners. So to us, the foreigner would be anyone not Ukrainian, because that was an international airline in Ukraine. And passengers were writing those complaints, like we went to this airline, we didn't like this, we didn't like that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so why am I giving those letters to him if he's going to just give those letters to the complaints department? Back then, we did not have any customer care in Ukraine. We did not have any. We did have a hotline, but a hotline was mostly to book the tickets. They didn't do anything else. It was just a ticket booking hotline, right? So I was like, why don't I start and call those people? And those people were from different countries in the world. But I picked up the phone and I called them and I said, I'm so sorry, sir. You had such a bad experience. Thank you for letting us know. The usual stuff that everybody would do today, but it wasn't that usual that time. And when I called those passengers, they told me, oh, thank you so very much for calling. We will not take you to court now. I was like, okay, so this works. And I guess that this was the first point when I felt inside that something is off. Why do passengers, in my case, why do they have to be so unsatisfied with the airlines, right? So I basically just went on Google, and I only had internet at work at that time. I did not have internet at home. And I Googled customer service in airlines. And I printed out all the cases, everything, all the possible education out there. And after work, I went home and I was reading it all, highlighting and asking questions and all of that. So then I read somewhere again, this is for you guys to understand that sometimes if you want to start something, or if you have the feeling inside that you would love to start something, but then it stops you because you have no expertise. If it stops you, listen to my story. I had zero expertise at that time, right? But I read on the internet that if you want to provide a great service, your employees have to be happy. Now, everybody knows this, but back then it wasn't so obvious. So I was like, okay, how do I know if our employees are happy? And I made myself go to each and every point of contact with our clients. So starting with ticket desks, then I was there where people upload your luggage. I was there where people answered the phones to book your ticket again. I was there when your luggage is lost. And I talked to everybody. And I was asking them, are you satisfied with your work? What is it that makes you happy? What is it that you would need to do your work better? I didn't know back then that this is something that every HR person should do. I just did what it said on the paper. Yeah. Right? So, and then I had a whole research, which, it was a huge folder from each and every department, which said why employees were not satisfied and what they needed to do their work better. After that, I also read on the internet that you could do a quiz and spread it out among your passengers. And, it would be the service and perception quiz. So that's what I did. I printed out those quizzes. I think there were about 1,000 something of those quizzes, all paper. And when I got them back, I had to calculate all of it by myself, manually. Okay. So I had two pieces of information, why employees are not satisfied and then why clients are not satisfied. And then I did a whole conclusion on that. And I came up to my CEO and I told him, you know what? I really have no idea how to do this, but I feel like I would like to start the first, because again, in Ukraine, this was the first customer care line. I told him I would like to start the first customer care line. I seriously don't have any expertise, so could you please send me somewhere where I could learn? And also, by the way, this looks like it's going to be more work. So could you please pay me 4 times more than what I'm paid now?
I love it.
I think it's very good when you're young and ambitious. You don't have...
Yeah, I love it. Well, yeah, because it's a lot of people would have just kind of stopped there and not asked for the money, and I like you went for that too.
Yeah, but I don't know if I would do it now. By the way, I don't know if I was approached by a 21-year-old girl who is telling you all this thing
Yeah.
and is asking for, more salary. I don't know how I would treat such an employee. So I'm very grateful to that CEO, and because he said, I want you to do this. Please go ahead and try. So that's how I started this customer care thing. And you bet it was very successful because there was nothing like that before. So it was prone to be successful.
Yeah. And I want to ask you a few questions about that. And then we can talk about where it transitioned after that.
Yeah.
So what had you, and I know like you're seeing these complaints, you're getting the letters, and then you decided to make those calls. Like, do you have an idea of like what happened inside of you to like actually say like, oh, I'm going to do more than what this job is asking of me, and I'm going to actually like make these phone calls?
Well, I've always been a disruptor. Like if you tell me something is impossible to do, that's the best motivation for me. That's one thing. But then another, I have this value inside of me of respectful treatment, of respectful and nice treatment of each and every person. So if I see that somebody, and it doesn't matter work related, not work related, if I see that somebody isn't treated well, I get so upset. First I start crying and then I go and try to help. So this is my internal value, I guess.
Yeah. And so something triggered when you saw those letters of people being so unhappy, you thinking,
Yes.
like, oh, I have a chance to be able to help this situation. And that's kind of what got you to want to call them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's up to today. I hate when people are treated badly. I hate it. And I step in to solve it right away.
Okay. So now like you go to call the people. I feel like this is the easiest way to get yelled at, or to, for someone to be angry. And then if you don't have the right information, for that to escalate, like how did you get comfortable enough to start making those phone calls in something that hadn't really been done before at that time?
Well, I think that I was lucky because it hadn't been done before. So people were wowed only by the fact that somebody has called them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But then back to your question, I did need education to help me go through those calls, because if you don't have the education, it will be very hard to go through those calls later. Yes.
Yeah. That's when you Googled. So that's what helped, was you Googling and getting the information. And then you felt more knowledgeable to be able to do it.
Oh, no, not really. So what I did, if you've heard, you probably have heard about London Business School. So I've always known that these guys are looking for international projects to do. I contacted them and I said, would you like to start a project here in Ukraine, a customer service project, so that I know, could you please come here, look at where we are wrong, look at the customer journey map, and tell us where we should change. And they actually said yes. So I had London Business School people do a project for the airline for free. So this was another education that I got. But then I also went, Lufthansa Airlines were suggesting this years and years ago. They had a training course where you could go and also learn how to talk over the phone, all the usual frontline stuff, talking over the phone, dealing with hard passengers, all of that. So I also had an education from them. This was my first for education in customer service, customer experience.
Yeah, that's great, because once you have the information, then you feel more comfortable doing that. So
yes.
You mentioned, I loved what you said earlier with being a disruptor. I love that word, by the way. And you said something is impossible to do, you do it. Do you know where that came from?
I am really not sure, but there could be something that I was actually analyzing 2 days ago, because somebody has asked me that question before. And I was like, oh, really? I wonder where it comes from. When I was little, when I was 3 years old, I fell into a huge casserole dish with hot water. So that gave me 3 and 4 level stage of scars, and not the scars. How do you say that first? Like burns?
Yes.
Burnt skin, and then the scars. So I was very little, and I was in the hospital, and people around me, kids around me, but that was such a diagnosis that I had. They were like dying every single day. But then I was staying there for 2 months in the hospital, and I forgot how to walk. And when I got back home, my dad taught me to walk again. And I remember how how hard it was. And I was so frustrated that I couldn't do this because I usually, since I was a kid, every time I started doing something, I wanted to be successful from the first time,
Yeah.
And my dad was like, no, you have to do this. Let's try once again. Let's try once again. And I think that he kind of showed me what a persistence is, and that you never comply with what you're given if you don't like what you're given. I don't mean like given by God. I mean the circumstances. If you don't like those circumstances, there's always a way out. So maybe that.
Yeah, no, and that's an amazing observation.
Yes.
And it just, what comes to mind is just like, this is kind of this pattern now that you're able to, like all these things that you've been able to do are now almost from having this experience. That's amazing. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So now, yeah, that makes sense. Cause I'm like, gosh, there's so many people that are like reactive, right? And maybe, I don't know if it's fear to be proactive, actually just picking up the phone and making those calls versus you could have told the CEO, oh, I think someone should call these people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You took the initiative to actually call them yourself. And so that's a kind of a special little secret that I'd love to know where that comes from. But I'm guessing part of that is just from having that experience when you were younger.
But at the same time, I always tell, especially students at the universities, I always tell them that you always have to look for the possibilities, how you can better serve your employer. And remember, you and I were talking about ownership mentality as a value, right? Mm-hmm. So, because young people, so many times they want to know what they will get out of it, and then they're ready to do the extra. But successful people do everything vice versa. They do the extra first, and then they're promoted, and then they get bigger salaries and all of that. So,
okay, great. So now we are moving forward with, you basically had created the first customer care line, and then you asked your boss for the raise, and it sounds like he did that, and then you initiated that. And then what happened next?
Yeah. So from that airline, well, I did a huge project in there. And then from that airline, I was headhunted to many other airlines and travel and tourism. I had to change countries. And when I was already living in a different country, I decided that I should go and get an official certification, because I've been doing stuff, but I wasn't sure I was doing it still the right way, right? And I wanted to feel like I'm professional in this. So that's when I went to the States and got my certification as a customer experience consultant. I studied there for a year. And then, I was then living in a different country and started having some clients would be saying, Anastasia, you're so successful with customer service in the airline or travel, depending on where I was at that time in the corporate. And they wanted me to help them. Yeah. So when we had to move back to Ukraine, I was all ready to, just come and start my own business, get out of corporate, and I'll be having lines and lines and lines of customers and all of that. So when we moved back to Ukraine, for 6 months, I had 0 clients. I started to open my own thing. I did not want to go to corporate once again. And I had 0 clients for the first 6 months. So for those of you who are thinking leaving corporate and stepping right into your own thing, you might need, financial ability. Yeah. Secure yourself a financial ability for that. Yes. And my husband was very supportive. So by the way, that's also something that you would need, because I remember sitting and looking out of the window and crying like for days, because talk about your self-esteem as a professional. Only 6 months ago, you were needed by everybody, right? In corporate, they were listening to you. Big guys were listening to you. You were out there at the conferences, and now nobody wants you. Sounds like.
Yeah, it's almost like an identity kind of shift there too.
Oh yeah, it's a very hard place to be, especially for those people whose identity is very tied with what they do, as it is in my case. And I've realized that it's because my work is my mission in life, and when you have 2 of those together, it's really very hard to take out your identity from it. Your identity is in it all the time. So yeah, and then you will like this story, I'm sure, especially because the name of your podcast is just Do the Thing. I remember I was having a conversation with my very successful friend in PR. This was maybe the 5th month of no customers. And he was looking at me and he said, well, why don't you start writing for Forbes magazine? And I look at him and laugh. And I said, well, why would they want me? Why would they want me? I have no customers here. I have, who am I? But then I was sitting there and I didn't have any choice, right? So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. So I wrote to Forbes. I said, here's an sample article. I could write about customer experience, customer service, because that's my expertise. Would you want it? They said yes.
Wow.
They said yes. I didn't believe my eyes. They said yes. So from that time, I was maybe for 3 to 4 months, I was writing for them regularly. And my first client came from those articles. They called me and they said, Anastasia, we saw you in Forbes magazine. So I bet you're good.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Oh my gosh. So when your friend told you to write for them, you originally were like, there's no way, why would they want me? But how did you work past that to just be able to email them? To contact them? Well,
it's the just do it thing, seriously.
Yeah.
And then also I didn't have a choice. I had nothing to do. I was either about to just sit and cold call, which I personally have always hated, or I had to do this. So I decided I do this.
Yeah. And so I love this when people say the no choice thing, because technically you could have gone back to corporate, right? So in that moment, how did you make that decision to just keep pushing forward and not to fall back?
It's really hard to say, Stacey. Maybe if it would have taken 2 more months, maybe I would have given up. I think it's very personal. You can't just say, okay, if in 6 months you don't have a client, go back to corporate. No. Yeah. So I think it's very individual.
And I love it that you kept pushing. I love it. So now people are starting to work with you because you have your expertise built up. And then what happened next?
So I got my first client. It was a big bank, and I did a little workshop for them. It wasn't regular. I usually work with companies for 12 months at least. If it's a big company, you double that. Because what we deal with company service transformations. So it's everything from the service vision to service culture, and only then the customer service standards, right? It's a very, I don't like the word holistic because now everybody uses it, but it's a very complex project. When you start with, I love how you called it service mindset, and only then you go operational, and not vice versa. So many people start with just creating a customer journey map, which then is never implemented, right? Because there's not the right mindset in the company or not the right values. So I had my first client, and also I had another dream. I wanted to, because remember I had my certification in the US. So I always wanted to have a place in Ukraine where people could come and learn customer service, customer experience, because back then also we didn't have anything like that. So I started pitching a business school, and it's one of the oldest business schools in Europe. And I was pitching them for a year. I can repeat that. Pitching for a year. Until they invited me for a guest speaking. And I did a guest speaking and felt like I completely failed. Like inside, I felt I was like I gave the most horrible speech. And I remember coming home in tears. I was like, I completely failed it. There's just no way they're going to invite me. I don't know why, but I don't know, maybe I was anxious or something, but I wasn't being myself at that time. It was just very bad. But they called me in a week, I guess, and they asked me if I could do a whole program for them. So I started with a program, and now I teach MBA students at the same business school.
Wow.
Again, it's all about pushing. If you believe in it, though, you have to. I'm trying to analyze your question. It's not just about pushing. It's if you really believe in it. If you really I really believe that Ukrainians should have a place where they come and learn. How do you make a company truly servant to your employees, your vendors, and your customers, right? And I think that this belief, the why, actually gives you power not to give up. Because if it were just for the sales, like, I'm doing this so that I could get more potential clients out of the business school and then do projects for them, which would mean, of course, money, I think I wouldn't have pushed that hard. It was a stronger belief that helped to push. So since that time, we've been lucky to work with huge brands, starting with McDonald's, then huge international banks, Visa. I've been on stages in Brussels, in New York City, where else? Even in India.
Wow.
Yes.
What's your main focus now when you're working with people? I mean, obviously it's service, but like, what's kind of a description if a company decided they wanted to work with you? What would you do for them?
Right. So we have several products. One is just starting with the smaller ones. So one would be a service audit. A service audit is when a company is telling us, could you please come and see where we fail short? Okay. So we look at all the touch points with customers, and we kind of tell them, okay, so here's the level of service you are providing. And we also give the recommendations on how to change it, right? Now, the second one, because not everybody could change it. It depends on the company, right? If it's a small company, let's just say if it's a small beauty salon, 2 people, just give them recommendations and then they apply them right away, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's a huge bank, this will not do. So then we also have trainings and workshops for frontline people. However, I don't believe that customer service, customer experience starts with the frontline people. I believe that it only reflects on the frontline people. So we come and work with top management, and it could be a training, but it's mostly a consulting, like year consulting, where we help to develop the service vision of the company. Then we help with employee experience as well, and with all the standards of working with your clients so that you don't lose them. And then, yes, we also have those webinars that you mentioned. The webinars would be I'd say they're more for small companies and for entrepreneurs, because the webinar is something that you could spend 1 hour and learn from it and go and apply it right away.
Yeah. Those are so special too. The other thing I'm thinking as you're talking, I don't know if you've done this yet, but man, this would be I think a huge niche is the companies that went remote during COVID and aren't coming back again. Because I know a lot of business owners that they ended up getting rid of their business lease, during COVID. And then they're not, they're like, oh, it's working, so I'm not doing it. But I know a shift in culture, right? Because now you're no longer in person. So I'm just wondering if you've explored that yet with the companies that, have had to move remote.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that we were approached by the company that would have this specific request, right? Yeah. But I think I'm used to now having clients that are either completely remote or semi-remote. So this is more of a format. But then yes, when you work with them, the question of culture is not completely different. The question of onboarding is not completely different, right? Yeah. And question of leadership is not completely different. So it just, it's the format of their work. Of course, it influences what they have, but I wouldn't necessarily say our magic is in turning on the service mindset in people, especially in top management. So once that is turned on, then it's much easier to implement everything else.
What do you think has been the hardest thing about all of this? Being able to, I'm trying to imagine just even the part of being the first to establish this in Ukraine, and then the resistance. I don't know if you had any resistance there, but what generally was the hardest thing for you while you were getting this going?
Yeah, it's hard to be the first person, because if you're the first, it means that everybody else will be telling you this is the BS and nobody would buy it. But I didn't have a goal of selling stuff. I didn't. It has never been. Money has never ever been my first goal. Yeah, it's hard. The resistance is there. By the way, the resistance is everywhere, because we are talking right now. Our projects are very connected with change management inside the company, but it's not just change management in terms of here's the new digital system that we are going to use. This is the change management in culture and mindset. Very tough. So of course you get this resistance no matter the country. Nobody likes change. Well, not nobody, but people usually do not like the change, right? The resistance, but then, what gives you power? This is a very rewarding work. It's hard in the beginning, but then when companies started seeing the results of it, the culture shift, and then the shift in their profits, because it's connected. It should be, I'm a business owner. I won't tell you, please do the best customer service just for the sake of the best customer service. No. Or change your culture just for the sake of the culture. It should be shown in your P&L. So when they see that, and when they write you those long letters, like, I'll share an example. So we have started working with one specific company before the war, a car dealership. And during the war, their CEO, she wrote me a huge letter. She said, Anastasia, thank you very much for starting to work on our culture, because now I see how people are helping each other and still staying at work and still helping the business, even though nobody is sure that they would get their salaries. Not because the CEO is bad. It's just she told them openly, guys, I really don't know for how long this is going to last. Not the war, but the possibility of paying them salaries. But they said, no. We're going to survive. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And if you can pay us, please pay. If you cannot, that's okay as well. Can you imagine this?
No.
Neither do I. Okay. But she said, like, a year ago, this would have never been possible.
It's just because of the level of service was ingrained. So the culture had completely shifted to get them so passionate about what they were doing.
Yes. And then the word serve is very, how would you say that? Wide. Because serve, you don't just serve your clients, you serve each other, you serve your employees. As a leader, you serve your teams. So once you have that installed inside the company, then you would see those beautiful things happening.
That's amazing. So how do you keep yourself motivated?
At this point, everybody is expecting that I would tell them, I wake up at 5 a.m., then I do my yoga, then I do my reading, then I do my... No, I wake up I actually do wake up at 5 a.m. here in London because the commute is so hard. But I think, Stacey, that I get motivated by people. And when I see the results in people, the change in people, when they say, Anastasia, thank you so much for the work you're doing in our company, because it has influenced me personally, and now the relationships I have at home are much better. I'm like, okay, how is that connected? But it gives me energy. Or helping my girlfriends when they send me pictures now of their happy kids going to schools finally somewhere in Germany or in Poland, and my girlfriend's happy faces when they're not crying in their beds anymore and they're going out and having at least a coffee outside, right? Mm-hmm. It gives me, is there anything better than this?
Yeah.
It's changing. It's really impacting people's lives. It's not just impacting their companies or their profits. To me, it's much better. It's much better and much more rewarding than this.
It's that ripple that you're feeling it, and that's giving you more energy to get you to push through, it sounds like. We had talked on the last episode, and if you guys haven't listened to that yet, definitely check it out. You'll see Anastasia's name in the first line, so you could search it that way. And I know the advice you gave last time was, in terms of your best piece of advice for people to do the thing, was, I believe it was your network, and because you had gone into, which, it makes total sense, into detail about how that's helped you. Because when you lost everything, pretty much, that's one thing that you still had, were the people that were surrounding you. And I was just wondering either if there was anything you wanted to add to that, or anything else based on, now, if there's any advice you would give to people on them doing the thing.
Yeah, I actually have two things. Number one is, I didn't think much of it, but then somebody told me this and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And you were asking a lot of questions about that, Stacey, like, how do you keep moving on when you're scared to do stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly scared of doing stuff. Like I was telling you about this first client in London that I just got. And it's a very expensive clinic, dentistry, in the most expensive area in London. And this is the first time of me working in a long project with people here, right? And when I went there, I was so scared. I have to tell you, I was so scared. But I guess my point here is that if you're starting something new or when you level up, you will always be scared. Just accept it. But then still do it. Okay? Still do it. You can say, guys, I'm so scared right now, or anxious, or excited, whichever word you use. You can openly say, this is the first time, because you know how they teach us that you always have to show like you're the most successful person out there in the world. Well, maybe I was the most successful, but now, when I say I don't mean myself, but everybody else. But, you know, nobody's expecting the war. Nobody's expecting any crisis, right? So there still will be something in your life that will just make you go back to zero, emotionally or financially. And you will be so scared to start all over again and do new things, because they're so uncomfortable. It is so very uncomfortable to be looking for clients again now. I have not done this in years, seriously, because clients were looking for me. It was a different situation. But that's okay. You know, just tell yourself, okay, I'm scared, but I'm still going to do this, because I don't want you to be paralyzed by fear up to the point where when you don't follow your dreams, don't follow your goals, don't do anything just because you have this fear of what if, you know? So I don't know how much that would bring value to everybody listening, but
I have a feeling it'll be great value. That was really good. That was really good. I love it. And then did you say you had another one?
Yeah, but I forgot it. I got so excited about this that I forgot.
I know. That was pretty powerful. I was afraid to ask because I'm like, that was really good.
Yeah, I'm afraid to. What was it though? Well, I don't know. Stacey, sorry.
I think I'm going to ask I'll ask you another question and maybe it'll come back. I'm really curious because you mentioned when you did that one speech and it sounded like you were just really hard on yourself. And I've done that before. It's so easy to have that inner critic come out and explode in our heads, especially when you're doing something new. And then you did later get validated because they ended up becoming your client. I was just wondering, what do you do now when that happens? Because technically, like, had they not become your client, it's almost like learning how to not be attached to the outcome, right? And doing that. So I was just wondering if you have that experience still, where your inner critic comes out and you know how you handle that.
Well, my inner critic comes out every single time, even on Saturdays and Sundays. It's always telling me, Anastasia, why are you having this coffee right now? Go back to work. So, so I'll be very frank with you guys. Yeah, this happens all the time. And it's easy to talk about not being attached to a result of it when you have 300 clients waiting for you in the same months, right? But when you only have this one and you need it, because if you don't have it, you don't know how you're going to pay your bills and how are you going to survive in a different country, then I get it. You will still be attached to the result. The only suggestion here is, you've probably heard it before, but as hard as it is, try to don't think about yourself. What am I going to do if I don't sell? What am I going to do if they don't buy? What am I going to do? But at this point, forget about yourself, at least at this point, and only think about them. So try to tell yourself, okay, so let me imagine myself being receptionist at the dentistry clinic. So what hardships do I have? What is hard for me when I work with clients? Now imagine I'm a founder of this clinic, an owner. What hardships do I have? How do I talk to my employees? So for a minute, forget about your goal in there. Only think about their goals, only their goals, and be very frank. Be very frank that you are now on their side and you're only thinking their goals. Now, when you're only thinking their goals, you automatically would get what you need.
Yeah.
But it never works. Well, sometimes it works vice versa, but people feel it. People feel that you're following your own agenda. You're not interested in the result. You're only interested in selling and then having more and more people on your whatever mastermind on whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I love the concept of being selfless and then being able to really think of the other person and what they need and then satisfying that and then it sort of can explode from there because you're able to then fill in those holes.
Oh, I do know what I wanted to talk about.
Yay.
Tend to be a weird concept for some people. Some people might not agree with me, and that's fine completely, but it's only my own experience, and I wanted to share it. I realized that if you're lacking something, you have to give it first to then receive it back, which is a very weird concept. So, for example, I was lacking support, right? When I left Ukraine, I was lacking support. So what I did, I started supporting my girlfriends. Automatically, I got so much support from people like Stacy, who I have never met before. And the stories that I could tell you, you would be overwhelmed by those stories, because people that I've never met would call me and say, Anastasia, we want you to do a speech here and there and here and there. And this is a paid speech because we want you to survive and we want your girlfriends to survive. Okay. But if you just think about yourself, for example, you don't have the money. And with money, it has always been easy for me. I always knew that if I'm stuck with money in my business, I have to give more. The moment I gave more money to somebody, to charities, that same moment, even that same month, I would have received more money from my clients. So I know it could be a weird concept because they tell you about putting mask first on yourself, then on somebody else. But at least for me personally, when I lack something, I always give it to somebody, and then I take it back 10 times more. So I don't know if that could be helpful for some of you right now, but think about that.
Well, it was so amazing to have you on again. I'm so glad that we were able to spend this time together. And I really think just your whole story is amazing. And I just am so glad to be a part of this journey with you.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you. You know, you're officially my BFF. I don't know if you like it or not, but you are.
I totally love it. Could you share where people can find out about you if they want more? I know that you guys can check out the other episode too, where Anastasia goes more in detail, but I'd love to have you just kind of give a quick idea of where they can learn about you.
So my second name is kind of tricky to pronounce and to write. Made it easier on IG. On IG, I am the world service coach because I feel like I want to save the world by service. And you can go there and contact me there, or Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever feels better for you. And I do answer all the messages because I try to practice what I preach. So if I could be of any help, any, advice, thought, experience, whatever, please. And I mean it. Please write me and, let's chat.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Anastasia.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks for listening to the Do the Thing podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, but even more, we hope you'll be inspired to do the thing. Do you have a burning question on doing the thing that you'd like answered? How about an inspiring do the thing story of your own that you'd like to share? We'd love to hear all about it. Just leave us a voice message at dothething.callcast.co or email us at hello@dothethingpodcast.com.